We are aware of the body in the sitting posture, and we let the mind rest on the body, just as the body rests on the cushion. And without losing this whole body awareness, we will now proceed to practice the first spoke in the wheel of our Satipatthana meditation, contemplation of the anatomical parts, simplified to skin, flesh, and bones, undertaken with the help of 3 body scans. Starting on top of the head, we are aware of the scalp area with the knowledge that there is skin. No need to force or strain ourselves to distinctly sense skin in this part of the body. Enough for our purposes if we are just aware of this part of the body with the knowledge there's skin. From the scalp area, we shift to the face, the facial area, aware of this part of the body, knowing there is skin. From the face to the neck, aware of this part of the body with the knowledge there is skin. From the neck to one shoulder, left or right, doesn't matter. Choosing one shoulder, aware of that part of the body with the knowledge there's skin. From the shoulder to the upper arm, skin. Lower arm, skin. And the hand, skin. Shifting attention to the other shoulder, skin. Upper arm, skin. Lower arm, skin. And the hand, skin. Shifting attention to the upper half of the front of the torso, upper half, knowing that there's skin in that part of the body. From the upper half to the lower half of front of torso, knowing there's skin. Shifting attention to the back of the torso, upper half, back of torso, knowing there's skin. And the lower half of the back of the torso, skin. Shifting attention to one of the hips, left or right, doesn't matter. Choosing one hip area, knowing that there's skin. From the hip to the upper leg, skin. Lower leg, skin. And the foot, skin. The other hip, skin. Upper leg, skin. Lower leg, skin. And the foot, skin. And we are aware of this whole body in the sitting posture as covered by skin. Skin including hairs and nails. And we cultivate an attitude of non-attachment towards the skin, similar to looking at various grains in a bag used for sewing. Balanced attitude, non-attachment, just skin after all. In the next scan for flesh, we start where we left off, that foot where we ended the scan for the skin. We start with that foot, aware of that part of the body, with the knowledge there's some flesh, muscles, tendons, whatever it is. There's some flesh in this part of the body. And from the foot to the lower leg, aware of that part of the body and knowing there's flesh. Upper leg, flesh. And the hip, flesh. The other foot, flesh. Lower leg, flesh. Upper leg, flesh. And the hip, flesh. Lower half of torso, flesh. Upper half of torso, flesh. Shifting attention to one hand, left or right, doesn't matter. Aware of that hand with the knowledge there's flesh in that part of the body. And from the hand to the lower arm, flesh. Upper arm, flesh. And the shoulder, flesh. Shifting attention to the other hand, flesh. Lower arm, flesh. Upper arm, flesh. Shoulder, flesh. Neck, flesh. and the head, flesh. And we are aware of this whole body in the sitting posture of its fleshy parts, muscles, tendons, organs, whatever it is, all included under flesh. And we cultivate an attitude of non-attachment, similar to looking at various grains. Just flesh, after all. And the bones, starting with the head, aware of the head, knowing that there are bones, the skull, the teeth, just bones. No need to strain in an attempt to distinctly sense every single bone. Enough for our purposes just to be aware of that part of the body and knowing that there are bones. From the head to the neck, bones. From the neck to one shoulder, bones. Upper arm, bones. Lower arm, bones. And the hand, bones. The other shoulder, bones. Upper arm, bones. Lower arm, bones. And the hand, bones. Upper half of torso, bones. Lower half of torso, bones. One hip, bones. Upper leg, bones. Lower leg, bones. And the foot, bones. The other hip, bones. Upper leg, bones. Lower leg, bones. And the foot, bones. And we are aware of this whole body in the sitting posture, of its bones, cultivating an attitude of non-attachment, similar to looking at various grains. Just bones, after all. Just skin, flesh and bones. And the elements, earth element, solidity, hardness, starting with the head, aware of the head area, and knowing there's some earth element. No need to strain or force ourselves, trying to distinctly feel or sense the earth element. Enough for our purposes to know that it is there. There's some solidity in this part of the body. Particularly evident in the bones, but found throughout the head. And from the head to the neck, aware of this part of the body with the knowledge there's solidity there, earth element. And from the neck to one shoulder, choosing one shoulder, we are aware of this part of the body with the knowledge there's earth element, that quality of solidity, hardness. From the shoulder to the upper arm, earth element. Lower arm, earth element. And the hand, earth element. The other shoulder, earth element. Upper arm, earth element. Lower arm, earth element. And the hand, earth element. Upper half of torso, earth element. Lower half of torso, earth element. Choosing one hip, earth element. Upper leg, earth element. Lower leg, earth element. And the foot, earth element. Other hip, earth element. Upper leg, earth element. Lower leg, earth element. And the foot, earth element. And we are aware of this whole body in the sitting posture as pervaded by the earth element, with the understanding earth element internally in this body, earth element externally outside in nature, just the same, no real difference. And this earth element is not something I can truly own, completely control. This earth element is empty, empty of itself. What element principle, that quality of cohesion, wetness. And we start off with the foot where we left off. Aware of that foot with the knowledge there's some water element there. Particularly prominent in the bodily liquids, in the fleshy parts and organs of the body, but water element is found throughout the foot, throughout the whole body. Aware of this foot and knowing there's water element. From the foot to the lower leg, water element. Upper leg, water element. And the hip, water element. The other foot, water element. Lower leg, water element. Upper leg, water element. And the hip, water element. Lower half of torso, water element. Upper half of torso, water element. One hand, water element. Lower arm, water element. Upper arm, water element. And the shoulder, water element. Other hand, water element. Lower arm, water element. Upper arm, water element. Shoulder, water element. The neck, water element. And the head, water element. And we are aware of this whole body in the sitting posture as pervaded by the water element, with the understanding water element internally, water element externally, just the same, no real difference. And this water element is not something I can truly control, permanently own. This water element is empty, empty of a self. Fire element, that principle, that quality of warmth, temperature, starting with the head. We are aware of the head with the knowledge that there's some fire element in there. Temperature is particularly discernible at the skin level, but fire is found throughout the head, throughout the body. Aware of the head with the knowledge there's some fire element, some temperature, some warmth. And from the head to the neck, fire element. One shoulder, fire element. Upper arm, fire element. Lower arm, fire element. and the hand, fire element, other shoulder, fire element, upper arm, fire element, lower arm, fire element, and the hand, fire element, upper half of torso, fire element, lower half of torso, fire element, one hip, fire element, upper leg, fire element, lower leg, fire element, and the foot, fire element, other hip, fire element, upper leg, fire element, lower leg, fire element, and the foot, fire element. And we are aware of this whole body in the sitting posture as pervaded by the fire element, with the understanding fire element internally, fire element externally, just the same, no real difference. And this fire element is not something I can permanently own, truly control. This fire element is empty, empty of a self. And the wind element, the principle, the quality of motion, oscillation, vibration, starting off with the foot where we left off, aware of the foot, with the knowledge there's some motion going on in there. Some wind element. The most prominent manifestation of the wind element in this body is the process of breathing. But the wind element is found throughout the foot, throughout the whole body. Aware of the foot with the knowledge there's some wind element. And from the foot to the lower leg, wind element, upper leg, wind element, and the hip, wind element, the other foot, wind element, lower leg, wind element, upper leg, wind element, and the hip, wind element, lower half of torso, wind element, upper half of torso, wind element, one hand, wind element, lower arm, wind element, upper arm, wind element, the shoulder, wind element, the other hand, wind element, lower arm, wind element, upper arm, wind element, and the shoulder, wind element, the neck, wind element, and the head, wind element. And be aware of this whole body in the sitting posture as pervaded by the wind element, with the understanding wind element internally, wind element externally, just the same. No real difference. And this wind element is not something I can permanently own, truly control. This wind element is empty, empty of self. This body, made up of a combination of earth, water, fire and wind elements, empty body, empty of self. And being empty, so dependent on supply of these elements from the outside. Earth element in the form of food, water element in the form of beverage, fire element in the form of warmth, clothing, heating, and wind element in the form of breathing. So dependent, and most dependent on the most ephemeral of these four elements, the wind element, the constant supply of oxygen. So dependent. And this body, made up of earth, water, fire and wind elements, so dependent on supply of the elements from outside. And so dependent on the most ephemeral of these elements, the wind element, that constant supply of oxygen. And we connect with the breath as that which connects us to life. A way of the breath in whatever way we find suitable, whatever location works for us. Just a way of the breath, of the continuity of breath, as that which ensures the continuity of our life. And there comes a time when this breath will stop, and this body will die. And if it were left out in the open, it would go through the stages of decay described in the Satipatthana Sutta. And we may use the mental image of a skeleton or any other stage of decay to remind us of the ultimate destiny of this body. This body too is of the same fate. It will fall apart. And we may attend to the felt sense of the skeleton in our body to strengthen this recollection, to bring home the fact that this my body will fall apart. And the way of the breath as that which connects us to life, we bring in the understanding of the uncertainty of when we will die. I don't know when I will die. It could happen very soon. Some accident, some organ in the body no longer functioning. I cannot even be sure of the next breath. And with every inhalation, we are aware, I cannot be sure this could be my last breath. And with every exhalation, we relax and let go. Relax and let go. And in doing this practice, we keep a keen eye on balance of the mind, not overdoing it, gradually allowing the fact of mortality to sink into the mind and transform it. Whenever the thought of our impending death becomes too threatening, we give more importance to the exhalation, to relaxing and letting go. More importance does not mean to change the breath. It only means more attention, more importance mentally. And we relax and let go. Relax and let go. But at other times we might find that the fact of our mortality is not really sinking into the mind. And at such times we might decide to give more importance to the inhalation, to the fact that I cannot be sure. I cannot be sure even of the next breath. This could be my last breath. And even if it is not my last breath, it is certainly one breath closer to death. With every breath, we are coming closer to death. And coming ever closer to death, we are preparing for death. We are facing it. We are training in the art of dying. We are no longer running away from our own shadow. And training in the art of dying is training in the art of living. Death is part of life. We can only live fully when we accept death, when we face death, rather than pretending it is not there. Gradually, slowly, we become whole by allowing death to be part of our life. So important not to turn a blind eye on death and mortality. With this practice, we are facing ignorance head-on. This is what most human beings most prefer to ignore, their own mortality. And the more we face our own mortality, the less frightening it becomes. The more we get used to it, the more it becomes natural. And the more we come to be at peace within, a deep peace, because we are no longer running away from our own shadow. Feelings. During these body scans, that which feels the body, that is feeling. That which feels the breath, that is also feeling, Vedana. 3 hedonic or affective tones, pleasant, unpleasant, neutral. We start with pleasant feelings. Aware of the head area. Let me see if there's some pleasant feeling there. From the head to the neck, checking for some pleasant feeling. Whatever feeling or sensation we experience, simply checking for those that are experienced as pleasant. From the neck to one shoulder. Pleasant feelings. In the arm. Pleasant feelings. And the hand. Pleasant feelings. In the other shoulder. Aware of that part of the body and seeing if there's some pleasant feeling there somewhere. From the shoulder to the arm, pleasant feelings. And the hand, pleasant feelings. Upper half of torso. See if there's some pleasant feeling somewhere. Lower half of torso. Pleasant feelings. One hip. Pleasant feelings. The leg. Pleasant feelings. And the foot. Checking for pleasant feelings. The other hip. Pleasant feelings. The leg. Pleasant feelings. And the foot. Pleasant feelings. And we are aware of this whole body in the sitting posture, of any pleasant feelings manifesting in or on this body. Could be feelings of warmth, smoothness, relaxation, pulsing, tingling, whatever it is, no need to label in any other way. just recognizing if it is pleasant, agreeable, pleasant feelings. And now we proceed to unpleasant feelings. Starting where we left off with the foot, aware of that foot, let me see if there's some unpleasant feeling there. Some tension, some pressure, whatever it is, just labeling it as unpleasant feeling. And from the foot to the leg, unpleasant feeling. The hip, unpleasant feeling. The other foot, unpleasant feeling. The leg, unpleasant feeling. And the hip, unpleasant feeling. Lower half of torso, unpleasant feeling. And upper half of torso, unpleasant feeling. Shifting attention to one hand, checking in for any unpleasant feeling. The arm, unpleasant feeling. And the shoulder, unpleasant feeling. The other hand, unpleasant feeling. The arm, unpleasant feeling. And the shoulder, unpleasant feeling. The neck, unpleasant feeling. And the head, checking if any unpleasant feeling is there. And we are aware of this whole body in the sitting posture, of any unpleasant feeling manifesting anywhere in or on this body. And neutral feelings, neither distinctly pleasant nor distinctly unpleasant. Starting with the head, let me see if there's any neutral feeling in the head area. And from the head to the neck, neutral feelings. One shoulder, neutral feelings. The arm, neutral feelings. And the hand, neutral feelings. The other shoulder, neutral feelings. The arm, neutral feelings. And the hand, neutral feelings. The upper half of the torso, checking in for any neutral feelings. And lower half of torso, neutral feelings. One hip, neutral feelings. The leg, neutral feelings. And the foot, neutral feelings. The other hip, neutral feelings. The leg, neutral feelings. And the foot, neutral feelings. And we are aware of this whole body in the sitting posture, of any neutral feelings in or on the body. And from having explored bodily pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral feelings, we open the vista of our awareness to include any feelings, even those that manifest predominantly on the mental level, without a strong or clearly evident bodily component, just the way of the affective quality, the hedonic tone of our experience. And as we keep practicing, aware of feelings, we come to realize the degree to which this body is a constant source of unpleasant or even painful feelings. The pain of the bodily posture, the unpleasant feelings when being afflicted by outside temperature, hunger and thirst. The body is a constant source of pain. So much of our activities are just to relieve the pain inherent in having a body. And as we practice, we also notice another feeling. And fortunately, this is a pleasant one. The pleasant mental feeling of being in the present moment. Very subtle, pleasant feeling. Just from being established in the present moment. And as we keep practicing aware of feelings, we notice they all share one quality, one characteristic. They are impermanent. Just like bubbles on the surface of water, one feeling after the other. Changing phenomena. And it is this distinct, direct experience at the feeling level of impermanence. And we turn our attention to discerning the mind, that which knows its condition. And due to the Satipatthana meditation done up to this point, chances are fairly high that this is a mental state in which mindfulness is present. We familiarize ourselves with the texture of this state of mind, its flavor, its characteristic. The mind, when mindfulness is present, there's an openness, perhaps, or maybe a softness, gentleness, receptivity. We find out what it feels like for us when mindfulness is there. Maybe alert, alive, developing intimacy with this state of mind in which mindfulness is present. This enables us to clearly recognize when mindfulness is there, or else when mindfulness has been lost. And this is the main thrust of contemplation of the mind, to keep monitoring what is happening within. Not all attention towards what happens without, the objects of our experience. The mind, what is happening within? How is the mind? What is its present condition? With mindfulness or without mindfulness? This is what we want to know, observe, understand, and experience. And sooner or later, as we are practicing Satipatthana meditation, mindfulness is lost and mind wanders off, some distraction or the other, reminiscing the past, chasing after the future. And as soon as we realize, smilingly we realize, oh look, mind has wandered away. If it is a short distraction, we simply notice loss of mindfulness and come back to mindfulness established. But if it is a longer distraction, we explore. Let me see if this fantasy, sustained thought, daydream, was that predominantly in the mode of lust, or predominantly in the mode of aversion, or neither of the two, predominantly in the realm of just delusion. And for discerning these three, feeling comes to our help. If the mind was in a state of lust, chances are at that time worldly pleasant feelings were present. If the mind was involved in aversion, anger, irritation, chances are at that time worldly unpleasant or even painful feelings were present. And if the mind was just involved in deluded associations, ambling here and there, clouded state of mind, chances are worldly neutral feelings were present. Contemplating in this way, we began to gain a better understanding of the distinction between worldly and unworldly feelings. And that better understanding in turn helps us to more clearly discern the condition of the mind, the underlying current beneath the surface of thoughts. And having discerned the type of distraction that we had experienced, for a moment we remain aware of our present condition of the mind, the pleasantness of the mind that has emerged from lust, emerged from aversion, emerged from deluded distraction. Savoring, flavoring that pleasant condition of the mind, in which these three defiled states are absent and mindfulness is present. And as we keep practicing like this, we come to notice how much the mind keeps changing. Mind is also impermanent. Even that bare knowing quality, although it is continuously present, still it is also just a process. If it were not changing, it would forever be frozen in the condition of knowing just one single thing. The very fact that it knows different things shows that this knowing quality also is impermanent, changing. And we also realize we are not in full control even in our own mind. Sitting down to meditate with the clear intention to stay in the present moment, we find sooner or later mind goes off on its own. Even in our own mind, we are not in full control. Mind is not self, empty of self. And with this third Satipatthana, we come to a comprehensive realization of the three characteristics: body, feeling, mind, impermanent phenomena, changing phenomena. And what is impermanent cannot yield lasting satisfaction. It is dukkha, unsatisfactory, ultimately unsatisfactory. And what is impermanent, dukkha, of a nature to change? How could this be the self? Empty phenomena, body, feeling, mind, anicca, dukkha, anatta, impermanent, unsatisfactory, empty of a self. And with this understanding, insight, realization, we proceed to our open practice, opening up to whatever occurs, manifests, however experience unfolds at the six sense doors, rooted in whole body awareness, that felt sense of change, and mindfulness present, mindfulness well established in the mind, and that insight, that understanding, whatever manifests is impermanent. What is impermanent cannot yield lasting satisfaction, it is dukkha. And what is impermanent, dukkha, of a nature to change, cannot be the self. It is empty. Anicca, dukkha, anatta. Planting the seeds of wisdom, growing the seeds of insight, step by step. Step by step we are progressing on the path to complete freedom of the mind. And we proceed to exploring conditionality in a very practical manner with the hindrances, where our task is not only to recognize their presence or absence, but to explore their conditionality. We examine this mind. Let me see. Let me see if there's any manifestation on the surface level of the mind of sensual desire, anger, sloth and torpor, restlessness and worry, or doubt. And if we find that any of these 5 hindrances is in the mind, with an attitude of a good chess player, we examine the situation. Now it gets really interesting. Let me see. Let me see how this hindrance managed to get into my mind. What were the causes and conditions for its arising? And what are the causes and conditions that can help me to get out of it? And what are the causes and conditions that will prevent its recurrence in future? And at times we may find just being mindful and examining these conditions will be sufficient for the hindrance to go into abeyance. If this is not the case, and if we wish to respond to these hindrances from within the scheme of our Satipatthana meditation, then with sensual desire and anger, we may give, for a moment, attention to the impermanent nature of feelings, the impermanent nature of pleasant feelings to undermine sensual desire, and the impermanent nature of painful feelings to counter anger. And if sloth and torpor or restlessness and worry are there, we may give attention to the subtle pleasure of being in the present moment. To help the mind gain balance, neither being with too little energy nor with too much energy, that balance of the pleasure of being in the present moment. And if these should not suffice for us to emerge from the hindrance. Then in the case of sensual desire, we may do contemplation of the anatomical parts to arouse an attitude of non-attachment. And in the case of anger, we may do contemplation of the elements, arousing the perception of emptiness as a way of deconstructing that solidified sense of ego that often stands behind anger. And in the case of sloth and torpor, or restlessness and worry, we may take up contemplation of death. In the case of sloth and torpor, with particular attention to the inhalation, the understanding, this could be my last breath. And in the case of restlessness and worry, particular emphasis on the exhalation, relaxing and letting go. And in the case of doubt, we investigate. Some doubtful matters cannot be investigated now. They need to be set aside for a later time. But if the doubt concerns our practice, how to proceed, rather than feeling helpless, we investigate. Let me see. I don't know how to proceed now. So let me try. Let me try this way. See what happens. No, this didn't work. So let me try that way. See what happens. This works. Sooner or later, by investigating, we will find a solution. And having found the solution from our own experience, we know in future how to proceed. And we learn to rely on ourselves, to become our own teacher. And sooner or later, a time comes when none of these hindrances manifests in the mind. They have been surpassed, and the mind has become greater, more concentrated, and more liberated than it was before. What a relief! What a relief to be, even for a moment, free from being overpowered by these hindrances. Oh, the mind is like crystal clear water, not colored by sensual desire, not boiling in anger, not overgrown by the algae of sloth and torpor, not tossed around by the winds of restlessness and worry, not muddied and darkened by doubt. What a relief, like having settled a debt, having recovered from disease, having been released from prison and slavery, having safely completed the dangerous journey, and we rejoice. Rejoice in this condition of the mind of temporary freedom from the hindrances. This experience of the mind that is temporarily free from the hindrances gives us a foretaste of the final goal. This is what the practice leads us to. A mind in which the defilements do not manifest at all. A mind forever free from the hindrances. And sooner or later a time comes, no hindrance is right now present in the mind. Although the roots of unwholesomeness are still present, on the surface level of the mind right now, no hindrance manifest. And we rejoice. Such a beautiful mind. Crystal clear like clean water. Not colored by sensuality. Not boiling in anger. Not overgrown by the algae of sloth and torpor. Not tossed around by the winds of restlessness and worry, not muddied and darkened by doubt. Crystal clear quality of the mind. What a relief! As if having paid off a debt, having recovered from a disease, having been released from prison and slavery, having safely completed the dangerous journey. What a relief! And we rejoice. And with that joy present in our mind, we continue onwards to the cultivation of the awakening factors. This wholesome joy, how did it happen? What caused it to arise? We were practicing Satipatthana Meditation, establishing mindfulness, and based on mindfulness established, we investigated, closely investigating this mind to see if any hindrance was there. And this was a sustained investigation. We had perseverance, we had energy. And then we aroused joy on finding that the mind was temporarily free from the hindrances. And this wholesome type of joy leads on naturally to tranquility of the mind. To the mind becoming concentrated, collected, and becoming balanced, equipoise. These are the 7 factors of awakening. They may be just tiny little buds, but however small or tiny they may be, every bud can grow into a flower. And anyone who has these awakening factors in the mind is capable of awakening. We are capable of flowering into awakening if we keep cultivating these qualities. Mindfulness, investigation, energy, joy, tranquility, concentration, and equipoise, subhikkhā. And having aroused these 7 awakening factors based on the joy of seeing the mind free from the hindrances, we continue in the company of these awakening factors to move on into our open practice. Open awareness at any of the 6 sense doors, whatever manifests. We are aware of it, and at the same time aware of the condition of our own mind, of balancing these awakening factors. Mindfulness serves throughout as the foundation. Whenever the mind becomes slightly sluggish, we give more emphasis to the 3 energizing awakening factors: investigation, energy, joy. And whenever the mind becomes slightly agitated, we give more importance to the 3 calming awakening factors: tranquility, concentration, equipoise. In this way, we maintain the awakening factors balanced, and we keep cultivating them by the very fact of our practice. Cultivating these jewels of the mind, nurturing these tiny buds, so that one day our mind will flower into awakening. And with open awareness of anything that happens at any of the 6 sense doors, we keep noticing impermanence, changing phenomena, arising and passing away, arising and passing away. And as we keep cultivating these 7 awakening factors in a mind that is secluded secluded from the hindrances. We cultivate the response in the mind to impermanence, dispassion, allowing the flow of impermanence to wash away our passion, wash away our attachments, wash away our clingings. What passion for things that are anyway changing, what clinging, what attachment. Dispassion, viraga. And the more we become dispassionate, the easier it is for us to be at ease with the ending of things. We keep noting in particular the disappearance aspect of phenomena. They are passing away, they are ending, they are ceasing. Cessation. Noting the ending of impermanent things. Whatever comes up at any of the six sense doors, giving particular emphasis and importance to its disappearing, passing away, and ceasing. And the clearer we see the inevitable passing away of things, the more we come to be at peace. Nirodha is peaceful. And based on seclusion, dispassion and cessation, we let go. Letting go. Letting go of what is outside. Letting go of what is inside. Letting go of all our attachments and clingings, our sense of identity and appropriation as I, me and mine, and eventually letting go of all that is conditioned, inclining the mind towards the unconditioned, the supreme peace, the supreme happiness, the supreme release from all that is conditioned. Letting go into Nibbana. And having cultivated non-attachment through contemplation of the anatomical parts and insight into emptiness, the emptiness of this body through contemplation of the elements, and having rooted mindfulness well in the body through this continuous body scannings, we are now ready to proceed to open awareness. based on our foundation in whole body awareness, whole body mindfulness, opening up to experience at any of the sense doors in whatever way it unfolds. Just aware. Just aware without choosing, rejecting, liking, disliking. Balanced awareness and the way of change, changing phenomena, impermanence, rising, passing, rising, passing, rising and passing away, impermanent. And as we keep practicing like this, sooner or later mind is bound to get distracted. As soon as we realize, smilingly, without a trace of negativity or aversion, smilingly we come back to the only time when we can live in the present moment. Realizing, oh look, mind has taken me for a ride. And if this was just a short distraction, somewhat like meeting somebody on the road, saying hello, and then moving on, we just come back to present moment. But if it was a longer distraction, somewhat like meeting somebody on the road and then sitting down for a longer chat, we discern the emptiness of the distraction, the empty nature of the daydream, fantasy, memory, imagination that has taken us away from the present moment. Just as the body is empty, so the mind is empty. And this distraction, this fantasy, this memory, just feelings bubbling up, just perception creating a mirage, and the mind's intention against our purposes to continue with this distraction, like a plantain tree without any solid essence. And consciousness, aware of this all, just like a magical illusion. Empty. And having discerned the emptiness of this distraction, we decide whether this contemplation of the empty nature has sufficed for rooting us in the present moment, so that we can open up again to open awareness, or whether maybe it is better to give the mind something to do another body scan, getting the mind occupied. And with this gradual scan, going part by part, making it easy for us to notice when the mind wanders away. At times we might even decide to start all the way back with the anatomical parts, working creatively, attuned to the needs of the mind in the present moment. That is mindfulness, that monitoring ability, knowing what is suitable. And sooner or later, we are back to open awareness again. Open awareness, mindfulness firmly rooted in the body. Anything that manifests at any of the sense doors is experienced as impermanent, as changing phenomena. Planting the seeds of wisdom, growing the seeds of insight. Step by step, we are progressing on the path to full realization of emptiness.
Be happy. Be happy. Be happy. Sabika mangale. Sabika mangale. Sabika mangale. Sabika mangale